So the ICCPR Act essentially came into being because the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, to which Sri Lanka has ratified, was never brought into our domestic law by way of an Act of Parliament. And although some of the rights have been decided as fundamental rights in our country in the Constitution, some of the other rights have not been included. And in 2006, there was a judgment called Sinharasa versus AG, which resulted with the bringing about of this ICCPR Act, which was brought in to supplement the constitutional rights that had been brought about. One of the most controversial sections in this ICCPR Act is the Section 3, the hate speech clause. This hate speech clause essentially is to prevent, I'm stressing upon the word prevent, someone from inciting others to cause violence, hatred, or discrimination towards another person of another nationality, person of another race, or a person of another religion. So it's essential that these criteria are fulfilled for you to have committed an offense. So as we know, there are two elements, the mental element and the physical element, what we call mens rea and actus reus. So the mental element must be to cause hatred amongst races, nationalities, or religious groups. You do something which incites others to go and commit an act of discrimination, commit an act of violence, or some sort of threat there. So if there is no such behavior on the part of the listeners, there is no commission of offense. So one thing we must be very clear on is the mental element. And it is in this light that there's this action plan by the Human Rights Committee called the Rabat Action Plan of Action. And in that, it's very clearly set out that there are 6 little items that have to be considered before a speech or an act is considered hate speech or otherwise. So if you look at it, the context in which it is made. If you make it in a very open, free, jovial sort of joke sort of thing, it might not constitute hate speech. So the context of the situation is very important. Then secondly, who is making this speech? A random obscure person like you and I making this statement might not be of any significance. But let's say the head of state is making this comment. For example, in Rwanda, if anyone has watched or read about the genocide there, how the leaders push the public to go and commit offenses, to kill people. That sort of control, the person who is making it and what sort of power he yields, is something that they would have to consider. Then who is the audience? Are you making it to a very angry, large gathering, or are you making this statement to a bunch of people who come to listen to a joke? So the content, the place where this is being made. So all these items must be considered in deciding whether something is hate speech or otherwise. So then, in this context, what we are going to look at is, can the police, just because somebody makes a complaint, come and arrest you and present you to court? The reason for the police doing this is that there is no bail before the magistrate court when such a serious offence is committed. The High Court only on exceptional circumstances can grant bail, which means that it's a very serious matter. So the offence that you are supposed to have committed must be of a very serious nature. So in this setting, I think it's very important that we understand your speech must be in a way that it affects national, racial or religious harmony, and also you make it to incite others to go commit acts of discrimination or acts of violence. So if neither is happening, then you are not committing an offense. In this situation, I think it's very important that, as I said earlier, we understand that the police is misusing the law. And I think with the recent judgment on bail that was delivered by the High Court of Colombo, this probably is the last nail in the coffin of the police misusing this piece of legislation. What we need to understand is our constitution recognizes the freedom of speech. When the freedom of speech is recognized as a constitutional right, the limitations must be very specific. It must be by way of law, for example. In the ICCPR Act, Section 3 is one such limitation. So what we will have to look at is whether this is something that violates my freedom of speech. To do so, one will have to look at the context of my speech, the motive of my speech, to whom I was making the speech, and who I actually am, whether I'm a significant person or insignificant person. So, in light of all of this, the conclusion that I can draw is that this law is a very narrowly interpreted piece of legislation. But unfortunately, the police is trying to interpret it very liberally so that they can put anyone and everyone behind bars as they please. So, at the end of the day, what we have to realize is that if such act happens and the police wrongfully charges you, you could possibly go file a fundamental rights case. You could also sue the police officers for damages in a district court, saying that these actions, these unlawful, wrongful, illegal actions have resulted with damages to me. These are some pointers that we can look at when we discuss the ICCPR Act and the Section on hate speech.